So we're going to look at first, this is nicked from S&C stuff, so strength and conditioning stuff, and you might actually want to keep some of this in when you go back to the gym. We're going to look at a little bit of power stuff. And the reason for that is if you've got a fixed amount of weight, so predominantly body weight work, and you're strong enough to do more than like 20 press-ups in one go. Like, I'm not a particularly strong guy. I can do a single set of like 40 press-ups. So that's way into muscular endurance stuff. That isn't going to be optimal for building or retaining muscle mass. So I want to do some stuff that's going to get me stimulus to nerd stuff now. The type 2 fibers, which are the ones with the biggest potential for growth. So I'm going to do some explosive work. The real focus here is like the catch. Because when you come off the ground and then you have to catch your own body weight and you've got to decelerate your body weight, you load the muscle as you stretch it. So that's eccentric loading, and that's got a really strong association with muscle growth. And the easiest thing to look at is if you look at Olympic weightlifters, they're not bodybuilders. They're not looking to get bigger because it makes them heavier and put them in a bigger weight class. But they have absolutely massive legs, and they've got massive legs not because they squat in a hypertrophy range of like 8 to 12 and try and get the biggest legs possible. They want to be as strong as possible through their specific movements. They catch the load and decelerate it on the way down. And all of that catching the load, that eccentric loading, is probably one of the things that's leading them to end up with massive legs, even though actually for them, excess mass isn't helpful. So because you've got a fixed amount of weight at home, if you haven't got any external weights with your body weight, if we do some eccentric overloading, we can still get some growth response and some stimulus to grow and a new novel response. The big thing to remember with this is this has a tear risk, so you can injure yourself doing this. You need to be warmed up before you even start. So for that, what I'd suggest to start with is something like 10 opens and closes, like dynamic stretching, open everything up. I can't count, so I don't know if that's 10 or not. And then like 10, reaching up, reaching behind. Reaching behind being important because that will stretch pecs as well. Dynamic stretching, get things to warm up a little bit. And then if you are strong enough that you can do, over 20 press-ups in a single set, you'd start with just a set of bodyweight press-ups. So just, it might be sort of 5 or 10 bodyweight press-ups that you do first before you got into this. Then you will get into the explosive part. And by explosive press-ups, I mean pushing up, leaving the ground, coming down and catching yourself. You don't want to do more than 5. So it's not about adding numbers, it's about trying to get yourself higher off the ground. So we're talking about this. You only want 5 reps, sets of 5. You want to take probably about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes rest in between, so you can recover quite a lot, because you're only actually doing anything for a really short period of time if you do 5 reps. So if you take 5 to 6 times as long rest, that's going to get you to like maybe 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes, something like that, by which point you should be well recovered to go again and be able to recruit those fast twitch fibers again, the big ones. And the idea is that you are as explosive as possible for the 5, try and get yourself as high as possible so you've got the most amount of energy to then decelerate again on the way down as you catch your own body weight. So I've seen quite a few people doing doing videos where they're doing like handstand press-ups and handstand press-ups against the wall. I'm not a CrossFitter. I know most of our guys, Strength Asylums following, aren't CrossFitters. The problem with doing something like that is you've got to learn a real difficult technique before you can actually get a load of muscular work done. We haven't got time for that because you want to stimulate muscle mass to retain it now. So I'm going to show you a pike press up. Now a pike press up is technically a hell of a lot easier than a handstand press up. And it's going to get you the same sort of force vector through your shoulders as doing a shoulder press to the front would, which is probably what most of you guys are doing, or like if you were doing a dumbbell sort of high incline press at like sort of 80 degrees back support, it's that kind of angle. So for this, I like my feet relatively wide apart. hands out head in this kind of position. Basically, you're sticking your head through between your hands and coming up on the balls of your feet like this. And then from there, keep your elbows reasonably tucked, lower your forehead and push back. So lower yourself down, forehead just between sort of your fingers, push back. You're wanting to push back in the direction that your upper body's at. So there is a shoulder press. And you want it to pivot on your feet, so you're dropping your body weight into your shoulders, if you like. A couple more. Again, you should be able to feel it and try to, like I say, keep your body, the unit, pivoting on your feet, drop in. Obviously, the higher you get your hips and the further back you get your hands, the more of your weight's going to be over and the more up and down you're going to go and the harder it's going to get. So you should be able to just play about with that, tinker with it till it really feels like a shoulder press, and it should be quite easy to get it to what we've been talking about all the way through, where you're fatiguing in a rep range anywhere between sort of 6 and a maximum of like 20 reps. Then you're taking a normal sort of hypertrophy rest, which might be 1 to 2 minutes, and doing a normal sort of set range of sort of 3 to 5 sets. If you had access to everything in the gym, most people doing a push day will do a big chest press, then they'll do a big shoulder press, then they'll do an incline press. So they'll cover like 3 big planes when they're pressing. We're going to do the same from home. And all we're doing is, because when you're in the gym you've got access to a variety of weights, people normally sort of prioritise heaviest first. We're going to go the other way around. So we're prioritising the weakest first whilst we're freshest, and then fatiguing ourselves into the one where we're strongest, so that actually that's affected by the fatigue and we have to work hard right through. So we're just kind of playing with the parameters down to what we've got. So having done pike press ups, which is shoulder pressing, which is going to be the smallest amount of muscle working, the next one is like effectively incline pressing. That's next for 2 reasons really. One, because people are weaker incline pressing than they are flat bench pressing. And secondly, because we're using body weight, the way to get it to an incline angle is to elevate your feet. Elevating your feet brings your weight effectively forwards over the pressing point, which makes it harder. So this logically just comes next in that routine. Because of how our sofa is, I can't use the arm of the sofa. It's not in the right place for that. So I'm going to use that stool. For you guys, it'll probably be high enough if you use the arm of a chair or the arm of a sofa. You don't really need any specialist equipment for this. So particularly if you've already done explosive press-ups in your session, you've already done pike press-ups, that's going to be pretty hard. It is quite difficult. So the likelihood of you getting up outside of a hypertrophy range is quite low, which means you should be able to hit fatigue within a relatively low rep range, same as has been the target for everything. Take a normal sort of hypertrophy rest period, which would be sort of 1 to 2 minutes, and then do a normal number of sets for hypertrophy, so anywhere from sort of 3 to 5 sets, depending on your time. So what we've done, working down from explosive press-ups, pike press-ups, feet elevated press-ups, is we've basically pre-fatigued your system, so that by the time you get to doing press-ups, you're actually fatigued and they'll be more challenging. There is a bit of a problem with that, and the problem with that, of course, is you've also fatigued triceps, you've fatigued anterior delts. So actually, if they fail first and your chest is still fresh, that could be argued it's a bit counterproductive. So one of the things is obviously to focus on using chest for your press-ups. And the other thing is, this is where advanced techniques come in, and basically just playing with the parameters. So this is using pre-exhaust. So pre-exhaust is putting an isolation movement for the prime mover, so in this case pecs, before you do the compound movement. So what we're going to do for this is we've already got relatively fatigued triceps. We're going to fatigue pecs, and then we're going to do press ups, and that's going to bring your press ups down into a rep range. That means you need to recruit all the fibers that you can within the rep range that's useful for muscle retention, muscle building. So for this, you need 2 baking trays. I'm going to be like baking tray guy after this. Ideally, if they're similar size and they're a similar material, so they've got a similar amount of slip, that'd be good, but it doesn't really matter. Use whatever you've got. So, for this is hard. This is also, it's eccentrics, so it has a tear risk. Anything that is eccentric loading, so you're loading heavily as you're lengthening the muscle, like a loaded stretch, has a muscle tear risk. The whole point is you're micro tearing it to get growth. So you do need to be well warmed up, and of course as you go further and further out, you're creating a longer lever. There's effectively more and more load. So if you feel like you're getting to your limit, don't push a little bit further, because a little bit further is actually quite a lot more in terms of leverage. So if you feel like you're getting to your limit, come back in. And obviously just make sure you're warmed up, but you should be by now anyway, because this will be your 4th exercise. So what I want you to do is I have to do these kneeling. I'm not strong enough to do this from a press up position. Those of you guys who are stronger might actually be able to do it from a press up position. And basically, push them apart to lower your chest towards the floor. Then pull in using your pecs. Push the baking trays apart. Then pull in using your pecs. You're going to push through the heel of your hand on the way back up. Oh, God, that's hard. So get to fatigue as many as you can, then go into your press ups. So as you can see, like I said to you, I can do a set of 40 press-ups in one go. After just doing a few of those baking tray bodyweight flies, and that was from my knees, I'm hitting like failure at like 12 press-ups. So that's the idea. So the last thing, if you take a towel, the first video that I did talked about using isometrics for hypertrophy, and that there'd been some research about how this can be done if people are injured and all they can do is isometric work. And it was suggesting that 30-second bouts of high effort isometric contractions and a total of about 2.5 minutes, so 5 sets, would be the best way to use isometrics for muscle retention. So we can do that for middle delt and for rear delt. So in this position, you basically grip your towel and pull outwards as hard as you can. It's like the bottom position of a lateral raise. What that's going to do is it's going to stimulate your middle delt at its longest position, and like I say, hold that maximum effort you can as if you're pulling apart for 30 seconds, and then lean over, same thing, pull apart like you're doing a rear delt fly, and hold that for 30 seconds. After you've done the 2 back to back with no rest, take about a minute's rest, then go back and do for that definitely 5 rounds, 5 for that. If you've got blood pressure issues, you can't do isometric work. Isometric work could be contraindicated for you. So safety wise, that's only for people who haven't got any sort of blood pressure or heart issues, but that should kind of go without saying. So that'll be the finisher for the whole workout.